You clicked on this video because you want to mastering your own music. You may feel that your track is missing something, that special touch and professionalism to the music. You're referencing your own track with artists that you look up to, but it doesn't quite hit the same. You can't put a finger on what it is specifically, but you know that something doesn't sound quite as good as it could. I really think that this is the last video that you need to watch on mastering ever, and I really wish that I had seen this video when I had started producing around 5 years ago. I'm not going to waste your time, so let's get straight into it. I'm going to break some beliefs here and probably disappoint a lot of you watching right now. You're probably focusing on the wrong things. Mastering is actually a tiny process that should have no real significance on the outcome of your song as a whole. What the fuck? I'm watching a video on how to master mastering, and you're telling me that mastering doesn't actually really matter? Yep, that's exactly what I'm telling you. So, was that intro just a bunch of bullshit? Well, you may still be in that exact situation where you have a track as a unit or as a whole sounding kind of weak. But you thought I was alluding to the fact that mastering would solve all your issues. For the first few years of my production journey, I was obsessed with mastering. I watched countless mastering tutorials, and I wanted to know all the secrets there were to mastering techniques. My track sounded horrible though, and so did my mixdowns, but I was sure that mastering was what was gonna save my tracks. Or at least I didn't realize that my tracks were garbage and I was focusing on the things that had little to no impact whatsoever. I'm still gonna give you practical mastering advice in this video, and I'm gonna show you exactly how I master my music pretty much every single time. But I need to destroy some almighty beliefs that you have about mastering. Mastering will not change the outcome of your mix. You can't polish a turd. The only thing that will make your track sound as a whole is having a cohesive mixdown. The mastering should be that part of the process where you make the track sound louder and ready for streaming platforms, but it can also be the part where you add some creative, personal flavor to the track to add some sort of signature sound. And this process is minimal and takes very little effort. Once you've learned it, you've learned it. And from there you can experiment with micro adjustments to make it fit your personal sound. So now we've established the mastering can't make your track go from bad to good, but it can make your track go from good to even better and even more personal. I'm not going to scare you with any complex terminology like subtractive EQing and fancy shit like this. This should be accessible for the complete beginners and those that are experienced as well. So let's get into it. So I don't use any of these fancy analysis tools anymore. There's a bunch of them called like Span, which a bunch of people use. And I think there's one called Uline Loudness Meter. And people use these tools to kind of analyze their tracks after mastering. I don't use these tools. I basically just listen nowadays because I first of all have more fun in the process and because I don't want to feel restricted to any like special numbers. But let's play the track again with these two tools up to see what it looks like if you're interested in that. So the overall spectrum looked alright on the Span, and we were hitting at around minus 6.5 LUFS on the Uline Loudness Meter. For those that are interested in the numbers, this is usually a pretty good range for EDM. It's on the louder end definitely, but it's pretty good. But let's actually pull up the master chain. As you can see, the mastering is extremely minimal. First of all, we got an SSQ. I use this on pretty much every single song I make. My tracks for some reason always miss a bit of that crispy high end, so I add on the SSQ and then add usually around 1 dB of high end. It's an analog EQ, so it saturates the frequencies instead of just boosting them, and it gives that really crisp sound. Then we got a very subtle EQ, which is ducking around 1.5 dB at around 270 Hz. I think this track was a bit boomy and a tiny bit muddy as well, so I just ducked a bit of these frequencies here. Then we got a tool, which is the mono preset, and I'm pretty sure I'm just using this to automate it. Yes, I'm using it to automate it in the build-up to make the drop hit harder. This is a pretty cool trick and an illusion. What you're pretty much doing is making the track more and more mono towards the end of the build-up, and that gives the illusion that the drop is wider than it actually is. And lastly on the chain, we got an invisible limiter, which is pushing it around 1 dB. I like to push my limiter as much as I possibly can before it starts to clip, and then I turn it down just a little bit. This is the limiter I use on pretty much every single track. There's no specific reason I use this, I just bought it a long time ago and I still use it to this day. But I think Pro L2 is probably just as good if you adjust the right settings. As you can see, the mastering is really minimal. We got a creative EQ just to add some spice to the high end. We're doing very minimal EQing where we're just taking away some low mid frequencies, and we're only pushing 1 dB with the limiter. We're not using some fancy stereo widening, some fancy compression, anything like this, because in my opinion you should fix this in the mix. Again, mastering, like I said, should be very subtle changes, and then the push with the limiter. I just want to say that I'm no mastering expert. There are people that have been in this game for way longer than I do and will probably rage when they see this kind of video. But this is the way that I master and the way that I made my own tracks sound good. Feel free to disagree with me if you want, but I want to show this way of mastering to as many people as I possibly can. That way people can try it out for themselves and see if they end up making better masters and have more fun when producing. That's all I had for the video though. If you found it helpful, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want some presets for music production, there's a link to my preset pack in the description as well, and I will see you guys next time.